Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and while Marvel Studios has pushed a number of films, Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars remain. But will Avengers Kang Dynasty remain, or will we get like a bigger Secret Wars Part 1 and Part 2? How are we going to get to Secret Wars? What's the best path to take? Well, in my recent interview with Iman Vellani, she hinted at a future MCU that could tie comic storylines with elements from Deadpool 3 and Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts, while neatly transitioning away from maybe Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror without sacrificing storytelling. Is there still a place for Kang in the MCU? Yeah, we think so. Iman definitely has a good pitch, and Hector and I have thoughts. That's right, because this is a sneak peek where we're taking the temperature of whatever we're watching while we head into the next episode to look ahead in the next week of Nerdum, and Hector Navarro's here. Hey Hector, how you doing?
I'm so good. I'm in my garage surrounded by my comics, so I'm the most qualified person to be here.
Yes, that's all it takes. If you're ever feeling imposter syndrome, any YouTuber out there, just put a bunch of a wall of comics or Funko Pops or toys, and then people will just know that you're an expert.
That's it. Absolutely.
That's all it takes.
That's it.
We really got to talk about this. And Hector, I know from an amazing video you made for New Rockstars breaking down this comic storyline that you really do know the Jonathan Hickman Time Runs Out storyline leading into the 2015 Secret Wars that they're seeming to adapt right now in the MCU.
A little bit. Yeah, I'm a little familiar with that comic books. Yes.
I would say a little bit or a lot of it. That was a really good analysis that you did of it.
Thank you.
But I highly recommend everyone read those issues of comics because it is one of the best comic events that they've done. But it's complicated. There's so many moving parts to it. But just to give I'm not even going to bother with a summary, but it really just starts with a character named Molecule Man who is discovered to be kind of a doomsday device in every single universe that spells out its destruction.
Yeah.
So in order to prevent that from happening, we have to identify and find all the Molecule Men. Dr. Doom is involved with this, and we find out that the Beyonders were really instrumental in placing them there. The Beyonders kind of want this to happen. Is that correct, Hector?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of complex and big ideas, but ultimately what these comic book stories mean to the characters is that you have characters like the Fantastic Four, you have characters like the Avengers, Spider-Mans, plural, get wrapped up into this, that are dealing with the ends of their realities. And at first they're trying to pinpoint the source of that. They're trying to figure out why certain parallel universes and parallel realities in this multiverse are dying and getting snuffed out. And then you've got characters like Reed Richards and T'Challa, like putting their heads together, putting their smarts together, finding the source, unraveling this mystery, but ultimately just trying to survive. These incursions is what they're called. The Illuminati is, of course, involved. Namor, the Submariner, is involved. And I'm saying all these characters, and it's like a lot of them are already in play in the Marvel movies, which is really cool. A lot of them have already hinted at this kind of stuff with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, outright saying incursions are happening, with multiversal implications. So that storyline was epic and cool and had some great moments, and it ultimately ended with the end of everything. And then it went right into this really crazy, ambitious miniseries called Secret Wars, which we know may or may not be the inspiration for the sixth Avengers film that's going to come out. So, yeah, there's a lot happening. It's definitely manageable and readable if you go and read it all. But you may just be reading certain sections and meeting with certain characters and being like, what? Who's Hyperion? And then you're just going to keep reading. Like, there's just so much happening.
Yes. And we'll see. We'll see if it's going to be the sixth Avengers film or if they'll move it up to the fifth Avengers film. Or if they'll just they plan on this being two separate events and they were going to have two different titles, but they're just going to retitle the movie and then make it like a prelude chapter. I want to bring in Iman Vellani, though, because if she wasn't a famous Avenger movie star, she could be a YouTuber breaking this stuff down. That's how knowledgeable she is about how this works. And she had an amazing pitch for how they could incorporate Kang into the storyline. So you and I react to it. Hector, I think it's a really, really great take. Seems like they're adapting Hickman's storyline, at least from an outsider's point of view. I assume you're siloed out of some of those conversations, but hypothetically, looking at things happening right now, if the studio were to establish the MCU's take on Kang as the equivalent of Molecule Man from that storyline,
That's what I was trying to tell everyone.
Okay. We're having a real interview right now. This is not even an interview. Wait. We're just nerding out.
Okay, you finish your thought, and then I'll tell you what like my theories are, because I genuinely am not privy to any of these conversations.
Okay. Great. So we can just nerd out on this. I love it.
Okay, great.
Kang equals Molecule Man, at least in the way structurally that story works.
I agree.
He's like the doomsday device of all these different realities.
Yes.
And then God Emperor Doom comes in to pick up the pieces and build Battle World out of the void. That's what I want to see happen. But I'm not in control of this franchise. What version of this are you most excited to see as a comic reader and as a fan?
Okay. So my theories, because it's like, okay, the time runs out, and like Secret Wars, it's a lot of characters and a lot of storylines, and I had to reread it twice myself, like,
yeah, it's crazy,
just to understand the basis of it. So translating that into film would be near impossible, I think, without it being super clunky. And then you have so many new characters, and a lot of the new characters that are being introduced, they don't exactly exist in the comics, or they're different versions of them. So I think it would make sense for, yes, Kang to be a version of the Molecule Man, where he, like Owen Reese existing in every single universe, and there's different variants of him. We've already seen that, so that makes sense.
Yep, check.
But also, I feel like he could be the Molecule Man and the Beyonder all at once.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because the Beyonder.
What if there was
intention.
a Kang Prime, like, or something that had the ultimate power, and because Molecule Man absorbs the Beyonder's powers and gives it to Doom, and who gives it to Reed Richards, right? So if you like cut out a couple middlemen and it's just Kang, and then maybe there's a different version of Kang that like is the main Molecule Man that's like helping. Maybe it's even like a Victor Timely type who's like kind of more innocent and wants to help Doom, and he's the one who absorbs the other Molecule Men and the Beyonder's powers, aka the big Kang, or they kill all the Kangs, and they meet their big boss, and that's Kang Prime or something. That's how I see it. And then the rest of the Times Out thing can play out the same, I think.
I love that. We have to bookmark this, because last time we were like speculating, I'm telling you, 2 weeks later they came out and said Secret Wars was happening. So
okay,
when we start to
maybe we're manifesting something here.
Right, we're willing it. Again, wouldn't you just watch Iman Vellani running her own like Marvel Theory YouTube channel? Like,
the best. Running her own studio is more like it. Let's just go ahead and give her that title whenever Kevin Feige decides to retire. So
she needs to be in the brain trust. I think. Put her, give her a seat at the table. Yeah. So I don't want to speak on behalf of Iman because I think she has this figured out. But really, I think she is saying to cut out a lot of the middlemen, because when you read Time Runs Out, there are so many steps.
Yes.
Of like this level of character who are reporting to this character, who are trying to defend against this character. So just to kind of remove all of that infrastructure and instead just kind of make it a Kang Prime, who is the Beyonder, who is using other like Kang variants as these doomsday devices, as the kind of Molecule Man. And it just, rather than saying like one character absorbs another character's power, they're all just Kangs who are doing it. It's all part of that Kang hierarchy, that dog pile, and that you use Kang Dynasty or any other title, whether it's Fantastic Four, anything, to show that that kind of, in game theory, there's a concept called the pirate game, in which like the most senior pirate tricks the more junior pirates to fighting against each other in different kind of scenarios to try to maximize his profit, his share of the buried treasure. And so you have like the Pirate King who's trying to, and that's kind of like what we can imagine Kang is applying right now. He's applying this kind of game theory and trying to play other Kangs against each other. We don't know who Kang Prime is yet in the MCU. It could be Kang the Conqueror, who gets sucked into that probability storm at the end of Quantumania, just because that paperwork in the TVA, we were able to make out that it said whereabouts of suspect unknown. So I think that's like Marvel saying he's not dead.
Not dead.
Not dead. I think it would be, I think the way Immortus, Pharaoh Ramatut, and Scarlet Centurion were introduced is like, even though there's an implied seniority with Immortus, I think they were all introduced as like equally wacky goofball Kangs.
Yes.
So I think they're going to cancel each other out. There's some other Kang Prime. I guess like what Iman is saying is that like, to lead up to that Secret Wars event, you need someone else who isn't Doom yet. You need, and I think they already have the pieces of Kang. It's just, I think Marvel Studios is still unsure what's going to happen with Jonathan Majors' trial.
Sure.
I just think that would be whatever happens with that trial is just a silly reason to scrap all the work they've done with Kang so far.
I agree. I think that when the Infinity Saga was playing out, there's a lot of revisionist history happening right now online where people are going back and they're like, the Infinity Saga was flawless. Every step perfectly executed and planned out. No, it was not.
Very much disagree.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that was such a series of happy accidents, good accidents, happy accidents. But even the notion that Thanos was going to be the end game, the big bad, wasn't in their mind early on. And I feel that because of the success and the reception to a character like Thanos, Marvel Studios for their next saga was like, well, we should really call this one, from the home base here, home plate, early as we can. We should really call it. It's going to be Kang the Conqueror. That's our big bad for the multiverse saga. And I think, based on the reception critically and financially to the last few movies and to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Marvel Studios may reconsider that and pivot, but it also may have always been part of the plan. I think I could see it both ways. I can see it where Marvel was fully committed on Kang as being the Thanos, going all the way through Secret Wars, going all the way through the multiverse saga, and then maybe the reception of the character. Again, exclude for a second the actor's legal trial. Like, if that ends up being a really bad situation, I think that Marvel should absolutely recast the character. And I've seen people online say, well, Marvel has an issue with recasting characters. Look at Black Panther. But Chadwick Boseman passed away due to cancer is a very different scenario than like one of their actors may potentially allegedly be abusive. That's a completely different. So I think it's absolutely would be appropriate and fine and okay to recast Kang if they wanted to commit with Kang. So going back to what I was saying a second ago, one of those two scenarios is either they see the reception to Kang and they go, oh, people don't really love him the way they loved Thanos. Maybe we should sort of pivot a little bit. But the second scenario is they were already always planning to do that in the multiverse saga because Secret Wars and Doctor Doom go together like peanut butter and jelly. They have to kind of be elements of that huge story. And Doctor Doom is such a massive, monumental character to Marvel. He is as big as Loki or Magneto or Thanos in terms of villainous Marvel characters in the universe. So I think that Marvel is always planning, has always been looking at how are we going to bring Doom into this? How are we going to set this character up to have that longevity that these other Loki and Thanos type characters have had? Not to knock Kang the Conqueror, but to me, he's always been a little bit of a B-list Avengers character. Like, he's a big threat. He's like an Ultron, but some Avengers villains don't necessarily have that same sort of like popular appeal, the wide-reaching Marvel universe threat that like a Thanos or like a Doctor Doom has, in my opinion. Even though Doom is definitely a Fantastic Four villain, I've always felt like Kang is somebody who, despite how powerful he is, he keeps getting defeated by the Avengers, And I think that's something that's present in Quantumania, right? Writer Jeff Loveness makes sure to like bring that up, is like, this is a guy who's going to continue to lose and lose and lose. And what does that do to a character? And, does it make him angry and this and that? So I think Marvel knows that about Kang. So I feel like they were always planning to bring in Doctor Doom. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah, I think Jeff Loveness, everything he has said about what he tried to do with Kang the Conqueror and Quantumania shows me that he gets he gets the character and he gets what the character could be. And that's why I was so bummed to hear that like these rumors that they may just be scrapping whatever his vision was.
Sure.
Because to show that like he would have to leave rather than they could just give him the note means that he was so embedded in whatever that story was that he couldn't extract himself from it and come up with something new. And I'm just dying to read whatever treatment or draft he came up with. But the issue, I think, is not with the writing. I think a lot of people blame the writing. It's more of like the way these characters were structured in the bigger top level decisions and what titles to introduce them in. And I think it might have been a mistake to introduce Kang the Conqueror on the big screen in Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania if that's the story you wanted to tell.
Right.
I think the way the Kang mythology has been told in Loki has been incredible and nearly flawless. I think the character of He Who Remains, as played by Jonathan Majors, and Victor Timely, as played by Jonathan Majors, have been really good. But for a lot of people, they just view Disney Plus shows as lesser than.
Right.
And these trades, Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, only care about movies.
Yeah.
And if it's something that happens on a streaming show, it's not as canonically or budgetarily as important, which I just think is so weird, because I just think Loki has been such important storytelling to the Marvel fan base, and I think the trades don't get that. They just think like it's this nothing show. They think it's TV. It's just silly, because there are movie stars and movie directors who are making TV, and that's been the case for 10 years.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me, though.
But,
It is unfortunate, like you're saying, that like even if this isn't exactly what happens in the movie, it's a bummer that Marvel Studios gave, for lack of a better term right now, the haters the notion that like their next big bad was defeated by a bunch of ants.
I know.
That's not really what happened, but the haters are going to keep repeating that over and over and over again. And it's like, maybe you're right, Eric. Maybe it wasn't the smartest move to even just include Kang in an Ant-Man story, period. Even if they're trying to elevate Ant-Man and the Wasp, these characters, to give them a little bit more serious stakes, which I super appreciate, it's still going to boil down to fans of these movies, haters of these movies are going to say, well, he got defeated by a bunch of ants. He's not the next Thanos. That's a bummer. That's a real bummer.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the bummer is what you mentioned, the happy accidents of the Infinity Saga. Absolutely. Everyone read Joanna and Gavin and Dave's book, MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios. It tells the story very clearly that like a lot of this was just happy accidents, luck, but also just some like smart flexibility on the part of Kevin Feige. And, you know, like they made a lot of smart choices. And part of it was like, they introduced Thanos in small doses, and they didn't announce the Infinity Saga until we had already been living with Josh Brolin's Thanos for at least one post-credit scene.
Right.
Joss Whedon threw him in with a stunt actor, I believe, playing Thanos, looking out at Earth, or or looking out at a broken planet.
The wonderful Damien Poitier, stunt actor.
That's right.
He was in Star Trek, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. He was in he played Goldface in The Flash. He's a fantastic actor and was featured in a lot of Joss Whedon projects back in the day, but is somebody who he was that early Thanos, and then they went in a different direction and did that whole CG thing, but he was wearing makeup, which is crazy for that first
crazy
one.
Thank you for remembering his name. And then we had Josh Brolin in Guardians of the Galaxy, and so like he was in these small roles, but every time we saw him, he was doing this cool, scary shit. He said, "I will bathe the stars in your blood." Right? He's like, "Fine, I'll do it myself." There wasn't a whole lot.
You're right.
And instead, they we got to see, I believe, Jonathan Majors in Loki, which was great, but. Like, I don't think they had already planned, like, Peyton Reed cast him for Quantumania.
Right.
Like, Quantumania was the first play, and they didn't have a good Kang story in Quantumania. That was, like, not a great introduction to the character at all. Like, if you really wanted to introduce Kang properly, you should introduce the guy as, like, in the background of everything we've seen in the MCU. Just pull a quick montage or just one scene. Like, you could, like, just show the same shot you have at the shawarma restaurant of the guy sweeping, and then someone say, "Hey, Johnny, can you go grab the extra whatevers?" And then he's like the stock boy in the back, and it's Jonathan Majors who's like, "I'm on it." You can just do little shit like that, just to sort of like every iconic moment of the MCU.
Just like Jake Gyllenhaal with Barf, how they stuck him into Civil War in the background. Okay, like Forrest Gump, they digitally inserted him into some shots of Captain America: Civil War. Great.
I don't know if that would have worked better, but like as a post-credit scene to something, I think that would have been a really fun introduction.
Yeah. The other thing too, I don't know if we're missing this and it necessarily matters, but I know that from being a fan of the comics, the first time I learned about Kang the Conqueror, you learned that he is a descendant of Reed Richards. Right. And it's like, I wonder if maybe having a Fantastic Four into Reed Richards first, and then an introduction to a character who goes, "I'm from the 31st century. I'm Nathaniel Richards. Oh, cool. This guy's a good guy." Wrong. He's the worst type of bad guy. And then kind of go from there. If that would have maybe hit harder, or that would have gotten people to get a little bit more, because as of right now, the connection that this character has, right? Thanos was Gamora and Nebula's dad. That was the connection to the rest of the Marvel heroes. And right now, Kang the Conqueror's connection is like, he's from the future and there's a bunch of variants and he's killed Avengers before and he kind of lives in and there's really no, did he have a relationship with Ant-Man? Did he have a relationship with the Wasp? Did he have a relationship with Loki? Not necessarily. So maybe that's another reason that this character quite hasn't connected to or stuck in audiences' heads, I guess.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. Like, for an effective villain has to have like a personal relationship with the hero. And the trailers for Quantumania hinted that, this guy had killed Avengers before. We didn't see that. We still
Right.
have not seen that.
Right.
We haven't even seen like any trophies that he might have collected from any Avengers. Like, Marvel will not pull the trigger on
Right.
making Kang an actual villain. So you know what? Bad habits have a bad habit of sticking around. Fighting them is hard, but transforming something like doom scrolling from a bad habit to a good one is easy, thanks to Fume. Fume makes it possible to replace your bad habits with good ones that you are free to enjoy. It's an innovative, award-nominated device with no electronics, no vapor, and no harmful chemicals. Fume is completely natural, and it uses all natural ingredients to give you a burst of delicious flavored air. And Fume is super fidgety, which is helpful for de-stressing while you break your old habit. Each device has an adjustable airflow dial, and it's designed with movable parts and magnets. Using Fume just gives you a nice moment just for yourself. Crisp mint makes my brain think I'm sitting on a porch sipping a julep, and maple pepper gives me a strong weekend brunch vibe, even if I'm just waiting to cross the street. And working moments like that into your routine is a good habit. Stopping is all something we put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason you can't be one of them. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com and use code New Rockstars to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code New Rockstars to save an additional 10% off your order today.
In my head, my favorite version of the Kang story does come from comic books that came out while I was in high school. It's an unfair advantage, but that's the advantage they get. Young Avengers introduces the team of characters who have to form an Avengers because there isn't one, because they've been disbanded. They were disassembled.
Right.
And one of those characters is Iron Lad. And then the twist is he's Nathaniel Richards, but younger, and he doesn't want to be evil. And that character had a connection to Cassie Lang. They shared a romance. That character had a connection to the rest of the Young Avengers. So when that betrayal happened, I was devastated. I was all in when adult Kang shows up and goes, no, you have to be Kang. You have to follow through with your destiny to be evil. And I thought that was a really compelling story. So for me, whenever Avengers, the Kang Dynasty was announced, I thought that's what the movie was going to be. It wasn't going to be Captain America Sam Wilson forming a new team of Avengers. It was going to be Kamala Khan recruiting Kate Bishop, recruiting Cassie Lang, recruiting Eli Bradley, whatever other Young Avengers characters we got there, maybe a reincarnated Tommy and Billy, to then go up against, or rather an Iron Lad shows up. You get this great young black actor to play Iron Lad. People are like, this is the new Iron Man. And you don't reveal in the trailers what the twist is. He's a Kang variant. And you have the Kang character be the villain in that film who shows up and just completely breaks the hearts of all of the Young Avengers characters that we love. And we're all of a sudden on the side of that. And that movie could have been the sort of Infinity War to Thanos, where I know people thought he was really cool in the chair, but I remember people also making fun, like all he does is sit in a chair. The Thor short made fun where Thor's like, all he does is sit in this purple guy, all he does is sit in a chair. So it wasn't until Infinity War came out that people went, oh shit, this guy's serious. This guy's an awesome villain. Maybe the Kang Dynasty, that's what they're reserving Kang for. But then again, we already got an entire movie and 2 seasons of a show with him in it. So
yeah, I think the Young Avengers is one really great path that they could have explored, because that is very personal. One's own sense of destiny and his relationship to trying to rebuild the Avengers. I get that. I think another path is the fact that he is a descendant of Reed Richards, and you make him, you just tell the events of the Fantastic Four number 19. Like, he is one of the earliest Fantastic Four villains.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm doing like historical revisionism right now, but if, the Infinity Saga is coming to an end, it's like 2017, 2018, Marvel's already making its plans for Beyond. They don't know that COVID's coming, but then they go in front of the Comic-Con audience in 2019. Was it the smartest move to say, we don't have time for mutants or Fantastic Four? Let's talk about the Eternals. Let's talk about Doctor Strange and Thor Love and Thunder, how Natalie Portman's coming back to Thor. Like, is that really like the smartest moves in retrospect? Like, why not say, no, we're going to lead with Fantastic Four. Kang is going to be the villain to them. Kang has a familial ancestral relationship with Reed Richards, and that's going to be the dawn of our new big bad.
And also, here's Natalie Portman. She's also here too,
also,
but mainly
she could be there too. But like, they talked about, like, remember the big headlines were Natalie Portman, Mahershala Ali as Blade, and then an Eternals movie.
Sure.
And then, yes, Shang-Chi too. Yes, not to say we can't have all of these things,
Right.
but they said yes to all these projects that like Marvel fans weren't really asking for.
Right. I mean, it's a tricky thing because Marvel Studios was in a position where they're looking ahead, they're looking behind them, and they went, it took us 10 years to do this. And one could say that maybe they got to Thanos too early. Could they have spaced out some of these stories and these characters and gotten more movies out of some of these characters and made even more billions of dollars? I don't know. I don't know what when they look back on what they've done, what they think they should have done differently, because we love all those movies. But maybe they were looking ahead and going, instead of just trying to do, and thankfully they didn't do this, movie, Avengers, movie, Avengers, each of those is going to be a phase. Let's refocus, let's rethink about this. Let's introduce new characters to further, stretch out our longevity and our interest in our films and everything. Because maybe they did look behind and we went through 3 Captain America movies, 3 Iron Man movies, 3 Thor movies in this first 10 years. And maybe we'll get a Thor 4 and maybe there'll be a new Captain America, but I'm sure they were looking at that stuff and going, people love those characters, and they'll certainly love the new characters we're going to introduce, and a new iteration of an Iron Man, maybe like an Iron Heart, and a new iteration of Cap, absolutely Sam Wilson. But maybe they were also a little bit nervous of like, maybe we got to some of this stuff and this kind of universe ending stuff a little too quick. I don't know. I mean, maybe they didn't have enough time to spend with once they had gotten the rights because of the Fox and Disney merger with the Fantastic Four and X-Men for them to declaratively state what they were going to do with them, what the movies were going to look like. And, it's tough because I, for one, really love all that extra stuff. It feels very 70s Marvel to me in the comic books. The 60s was banger after banger after banger. It was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby at the height of their game, just introducing all the most iconic characters. And then in the 70s, after Jack Kirby left Marvel, Stan Lee left to become like a producer or editor-in-chief or whatever he was doing. He moved to Los Angeles, I believe, in the 70s and 80s, shopping stuff around to do TV shows like The Incredible Hulk. There was still a great creative output, but they've refocused. They're like, what about horror? What about Man-Thing? What about, Ghost Rider? All these cool, funky 70s characters. Wolverine was introduced in that decade. And I think that it kind of took them another 10 years or so going into the 80s before they can kind of settle back into like, okay, now we know what the X-Men are. Now we know what the Fantastic Four is doing. Thor's killing it with this Walt Simonson run. So this is what Marvel feels like to me right now, but I can imagine I understand that it's frustrating for non-comics fans to be like, where's all my favorite characters? Because they don't understand that Marvel Comics like always has your favorite character. They're just always there, or some iteration of them or whatever. So it was maybe not the smartest thing to just that early into it say the multiverse saga, that's what we're doing. Because we're seeing it right now. We're seeing that maybe they might shift and change course.
Yeah, look, I'm all for the experimentation. I just think Marvel Studios would use the things that they really were treating as experimentation as like tent poles. And I think internally at the studio, they didn't know what their tent poles were and what their experiments were. And in some cases, the executive producers who were assigned to those experiments were like, I'm going to do everything I can to make this a tent pole because I want to come back I want to get a pay bump. I want to make my thing essential. So they would like tell all the showrunners to like, put this in. And yeah, I got it approved. So great. And then Kevin Feige's like, I'm overseeing 18 different things right now. Yes to everything. And then we get like crazy things that happen in WandaVision, really great things that happen in Loki. We have crazy things. We have Kingpin showing up in Hawkeye. Yeah. And some of it leads to great stuff coming back, but a lot of it just leads to confusion. Now, I just think like, had they gone into phase 4 and 5 with like, we're going to experiment with some stuff, but we're going to have our tent poles. And that 2019 announcement had no real tentpoles, especially in retrospect. Like, I think Multiverse of Madness was treated as a tentpole, but like clearly there was no communication between the Multiverse of Madness team and the WandaVision team. And like we got no real villain coming out of that. We just got like a different version of Reed Richards telling us about incursions. Now, maybe in a couple years from now, we'll learn that that conversation was very important. But again, a couple years from now. some of us are going to be dead. Like the shirt says.
We're all going to die.
Anyway, I'm just trying to speak to, I think, the confusion and the frustration, because what's at stake here? What, we didn't get the movies we wanted as fast as we wanted? No, what's at stake here is like now Marvel has painted itself into a corner in this kind of PR headache of like putting all their hopes on Jonathan Majors, one actor, to carry this franchise when they haven't written really good storylines for him in the movies.
Right.
They've relied on the Loki writing staff to come up with some amazing dialogue and some amazing philosophies for this character. But because the way the industry works the way it does, those will always be seen as less than and less load-bearing as Quantumania.
Yeah, I agree. And then you've got the great Ms. Marvel TV show, but the trades, everybody sees it as less than going into the big movie, The Marvels, which is a real bummer because Iman's brilliant in the show and in the movie, and I love her ideas of trying to cut out that middleman. I think that the notion of having a character in these movies that has the role of a molecule man, I think, is really important. You got to have an insanely powerful character who is maybe a little naive and maybe easily manipulatable, and maybe that could be a Kang, maybe that could be Scarlet Witch. I know you've talked about this before, kind of being a nexus being. Maybe it could be a Loki, the Loki variant from the TVA, is somebody who could, think he's doing something altruistically, but somebody like a Doctor Doom like steals his power. There's a lot of stuff they could do with that. And the bummer of it is that I love the idea of having Molecule Man be a crappy bad guy that the Fantastic Four just kind of quickly deals with, but then that character comes back later and everyone goes, oh shit, Molecule Man's a huge threat. Really, really off the deep end. This is a really scary character, really scary idea. But I like that history of them being like a C or D list bad guy that, even though is so powerful, doesn't really know what to do with that power. Kind of like, I think Electro falls in that same category for Spider-Man. Maybe the most powerful like Spider-Man villain, but Max Dillon always gets in his own way. Like he's just kind of a normal dude. So he doesn't know what to, he's not that ambitious or whatever. So maybe we'll get that in Fantastic Four, and maybe Fantastic Four will introduce us a great actor playing Molecule Man, and then we won't see them. And then the main bad guy will be Mole Man or Doctor Doom or Silver Surfer Galactus or somebody. And then in Secret Wars, that Molecule Man character comes back. But I like Amon's pitch too, to have that be a Kang instead. I think would be a great shortcut.
I agree. Now, we should do a quick heat check on how we're feeling about the multiverse saga and what could come beyond it. Before that, though, quickly, I just want to take this moment to tell you to check out nerdriot.shop, where you can always grab the latest and greatest new Rockstars gear. We just put up this wonderful Best Bubs shirt inspired by Deadpool 3 that you can grab as the holiday season officially kicks into gear. That shirt looks amazing. Support the channel and check out our great merch options over at nerdriot.shop. And don't forget to subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network, including this channel, New Rockstars, The Break Room, and The Deep Dive. But let's do a quick heat check. So a lot of thoughts about the multiverse saga right now. Is this just how a multiverse saga should feel? Should it feel kind of chaotic, a bit Amblin? And what saga do you want to see on the other side of it? Is it time for just a mutant saga on the other side of this?
Yeah, listen, I'm the dork who's going to say they've got the rights to the X-Men. Just do it right. Just take your time and do it right. And I will pitch that the saga after this should be the Phoenix saga. Now, yeah, I know we got a movie called Dark Phoenix. I know we had a movie, X-Men The Last Stand, that tried to do it, but I think that most comic book fans would agree that those adaptations didn't really quite cut the mustard. But more so than that, to just focus on Phoenix, focus on Jean Grey, but focus on the X-Men characters over an additional 3 sagas, or 3 phases rather. So 7, 8, and 9 are going to be the X-Men focused Phoenix saga. Yeah, you can bring in characters like the Shi'ar and the Starjammers and more of the space cosmic stuff for it to culminate in that kind of a story. But to plant the seeds and to go early from, like, I would love to see the X-Men in a movie introduced as basically Peter Parker's age, at least that first class of X-Men, right? That Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Iceman, Angel. And then their sequel movie is the one that brings in the giant size X-Men group with Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Wolverine, Sunfire, Thunderbird, those great characters, Banshee, those great characters. And then maybe doing Disney Plus series in between. This is all stuff that I feel like even writer Chris Claremont pitched at a convention at one point when a fan asked him, because the X-Men are at their best when they're very soap opera-y, when you can kind of take your time with these characters and the relationships. And I'd love to see the long game of an entire generation grew up with like seeing Anakin Skywalker fall to the dark side, or I think it would be so cool if Marvel took years, 5-10 years to do like, here's Jean Grey going from like a teenage character, like a young person who's figuring out her powers, to maybe even destroying a planet, having to sacrifice herself, just really, really tragic, horrific stuff, but maybe even relooking at the Phoenix Saga in a new light and seeing what we can do, and maybe giving the character more of a redemption. I don't know, but I would say call it the Phoenix Saga to really get fans to go, really, we're doing this again, and then for Marvel to go, hang on, let us cook. Let us cook. You don't know what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. That'd be my pitch.
I think that's a hot pitch, Hector. I think after...
It's very basic. It's very basic, Eric. It's not hot. It's not a hot pitch.
I think it's hot. I think that would be a very ballsy thing for them to do, especially after Dark Phoenix, which Iman Vellani in our interview said she's not going to watch it. She's not going to watch it.
I get it, but Dark Phoenix is not the worst X-Men movie, y'all. It's not. And it has a really kick-ass score from Hans Zimmer. Like, it's really good.
What do you think is the worst?
X-Men Origins Wolverine. That's it. That's the worst one. That's an easy one. That might be the
most disappointing.
Yeah.
That might be but X-Men Origins Wolverine has some crazy shit that happens in it. Will.i.am is in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
It's an insane movie.
Yeah.
Whereas it's hard to remember anything about Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, I just listed the score. I know. It's tough. Jessica Chastain was in it. There's like a cool...
She was a Shi'ar. You mentioned the Shi'ar. I believe she was a Shi'ar, but they had to dial back the shape-shifting because it was going to be too Skrull-like.
Yeah, which is a real bummer. But, now Marvel can do everything right, I guess, or do everything in a big bombastic way. That'd be fun. I'd also put Dark Phoenix over New Mutants. I didn't really love New Mutants. So, there you go. There's worse X-Men. That's all I'm saying. There's worse X-Men's, you guys. Come on.
We're going to break down all of them in the new year. It doesn't matter if it was New Mutants, if it was Dark Phoenix. We'll get to all of them in the new year. I'm not kidding. We're doing all of them.
Here's my pitch, and maybe you'll disagree, Eric, but by the time you get to them, I think that the movie Dark Phoenix, no joke, is better than X-Men The Last Stand. That's my hot take. That's my hot take. Sorry.
Disagree with that.
Sorry.
Disagree with that. Because X-Men The Last Stand is not a good movie.
No.
But it has, maybe I
got you. Maybe I got you with that. Maybe I got you with that. That's all I'm saying. I
just think the cast. Look, just any scene that Hugh Jackman's playing Wolverine. That's why it's like, I always just love him every time he's on screen as Wolverine. I'll always defend it.
I get it. But Dark Phoenix. It's.
I think you're barking up the right tree though, Hector. Because I think what we need is a true mutant academy. Like we need just kind of what X-Men. Remember X-Men Evolution?
Sure,
on,
absolutely.
Fox Kids, like
banger show, great show.
It had. That's what introduced X-23. Like, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't X-23 introduced there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what we need is like a true mutant academy, a true soap opera. I believe Gen V did a great example of what that could look like.
Cool.
Like we already have the table set of the DODC and government forces with Ritson and all them, like distrusting and wanting to lock up. We could just introduce Sentinels, like hunting down. That's where if you watch the Fox animated 90s, it starts right in the middle of like a Sentinel conflict. Like it doesn't take its time at all. So you could just introduce that in live action, I think, without too much effort. Just introduce the right young people, and Kamala Khan as a mutant can be right in the middle of it.
I agree.
That's, I think, where we need to see Iman next.
That'd be amazing. Certainly after Young Avengers. I think going back to this, the announcement day, Eric, that you were talking about with Marvel, and then saying we didn't even talk about Fantastic Four. We didn't talk about mutants. The other thing I think is maybe they have taken so much of their own time because they looked ahead and they went, okay, we can either jump right into our own version of, Logan Wolverine and Charles Xavier and Magneto and Storm and all these characters, or we can take advantage of this multiverse concept. We can do a Spider-Man movie that pays tribute and says goodbye to Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans, and we can do some X-Men-centric stuff where we bring back Hugh Jackman. We bring back, of course, Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool was going to happen, but maybe they re-looked at that and went, what a great opportunity to bring back Hugh, put him in the yellow costume, sort of pay tribute, but say goodbye to him and the rest of the universe of those Fox X-Men characters. We've got Patrick Stewart, Charles Xavier, which we saw we may see again, maybe not, but said goodbye to him in a way, put him in that iconic yellow hover chair and had played the little theme. We saw a sort of a CG beast, with voiced by Kelsey Grammer. Why not Nicholas Hoult? Because I think they're very purposely trying to have this kind of like elder versions of the X-Men characters to differentiate. When they introduce their Hank McCoy, it's going to be a younger Hank McCoy. That's my take, is that I think they're looking at the multiverse saga and going, let's use this opportunity to bring in some heavy hitters with the Fox X-Men movies, say goodbye, and then sort of wipe the slate clean and do our own version within the sacred timeline, within Reality 616, that is our Charles Xavier, our school, our young group of students, and then introducing our own Wolverine at some point. Maybe Wolverine versus Hulk. I'm still holding out for that fight. I think it's going to happen, but that could be another reason that they sort of paused on just jumping right into their own version of X-Men.
Yes. Oh, for sure. I think that is what the X-Men reality that we are seeing in the Marvel's post-credit scene and in Deadpool 3, I think is a temporary it's a temporary X-Men universe that is going to self-destruct.
Right.
This is not their future. This is just like a task force mission with one objective to get to Secret Wars. And it's like paratroopers. You're not building a community of tomorrow. You are building just a task force to do one mission that is just a little bit longer than the X-Force in Deadpool 2.
And then
just a little bit longer. But it's going to have the same ending. A lot of these characters are going to be killed off or just sealed off on the other side of a multiverse wall.
Yeah, they're going to meet OB and he's going to be like, we're all going to die. And they're going to be like, yes, we are. We're all going to die. All these X-Men characters.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. We'll leave it there for this episode of the Sneak Peek. Hector, we had other stuff planned. We're going to have to talk about that in a future episode because this ended up just being such a good, meaty conversation. We covered a lot of ground here and I appreciate that.
Shout out to Iman Vellani for really kickstarting that nerd fire. I'm such a fan of hers, and her X-Men Kamala Khan comic is fantastic.
Really
highly recommend. Really good. You want to talk about somebody who gets the X-Men? Iman Vellani gets the X-Men. So be sure to. I'm shouting out her comic. Be sure to check that out. And also, I want to thank the sponsor to this video because I'm a little under the weather. Vicks Vapor Rub. Just a fantastic product all around, or as Mexicans call it, Vicks Vaporu. So go get yourself some Vicks Vaporu and try to heal yourself this holiday season. If
only we could get Vicks money. Are you kidding me?
They're going to see this and go like, wait a minute. Yeah, nerds get stuffy noses too. Let's go ahead and advertise with these guys.
They're going to watch minute 41 of this this podcast. And then,
who the real rock stars are? Vicks Vapor Rub.
Be sure to follow New Rockstars on all of our social media and all 3 of our channels. Follow Hector at Hector is Funny and at Heroes Reforged. And you can follow me at EA Voss. And we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody. Bye, Hector.
Bye.